Big moan. Yeah, thanks. It's good to be back. Always a pleasure. Yeah, it's a great day to be a member of Rotary. We ask that you silence your phone conversations. And if you're attending on Zoom, we welcome you also and ask that you mute yourself. Is Jay on there?
Yep.
Good. Jay has a job today, so that's good. Yeah. Many thanks to Gary Wilkinson and Steve Madden for welcoming our guests today. Thanks, guys.
Really bad joke.
Oh my goodness, you loved it. You're still laughing.
Did you want to share, Mary Alice?
Oh, Steve, I don't want to take your steam. That fabulous joke.
Oh, yeah. What was it again? Oh. Why should you be afraid of stairs? Because they're always up to something.
Yeah, we stopped the show for that.
I was testing the microphone.
That's a good kind of. So, yeah. So, John Cumbo, would you like to come up and do with our pledge and prayer? You're not surprised by that, are you, John? No.
We'll start with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for watching over us. I ask you as we head into our election period here, that you help bring our country together, stop the divide that is happening, and help us all make wise choices. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, John. Mary Alice.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm up.
You're on. Let's introduce our visitors and guests.
Thank you, past President Tom. Well, luckily you're spared. I don't have any jokes with me, but for Halloween, I did give a number of 9-year-old boys a book entitled "All the Jokes a 9-Year-Old Boy Should Know," and they were something along the line of what Steve just gave.
That's funny because I was dressed as a 9-year-old boy for Halloween.
I'm here to do guests and
No, I would have admitted that.
I'm here to do guests and visitors, of which we have none. So we're just an internal group of ourselves, and look at the great turnout we have, which I think maybe due mostly to our speaker. And thank you for being here. So I'm going to ask Mike if he would start it.
Welcome you today. So glad you came along, glad you came our way. Our hand of fellowship is yours, sunshine or in rain. We here in Rotary say welcome, come again.
I feel like I need to take the reins back on this meeting here. Yeah, I'm thinking President Charlie won't be asking me to do this again, which is all good. So Laurie, would you like to come tell us about Family Rotary?
I would love to.
Great.
All right, so we have 3 birthdays in the month of November. We have Mattern, November 1st, Kyle Peters, November 5th, and David Bissell, November 7th. Happy birthday. Wedding anniversaries, we have Randy Gordon, November 4th, and Tyree Boyer, November 6th. Congrats.
Okay, we've got a few announcements. Please be sure to review the DAC-DB calendar regularly. I won't look for a show of hands for everyone who's ever even done that, but we still encourage everyone to do that. And Casey, here.
Yes,
Where'd you
sir.
go? Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about the bell ringing?
Okay, yeah, they're dusting the old timers off today, so be back at work, but December 2nd, bell ringing in the Publix, and we always meet at on January 2nd, it's a Friday. We start at 10, go to 7 at night, 2 per shift, like we always do, so sign up and let's get this thing underway.
All right. Okay, Touch One training will be held this Saturday at UNF. Still enough time to register if you wish to learn more about Rotary. And please get with Patty if you want to purchase Jags tickets for the games being sponsored by District 6970. Our club will receive Polio Plus credit for all the $15 of each ticket purchased. This week's game against the Raiders has been sold out. The tickets for the November 27th game against the Ravens and January 8th against the Titans are still available. And also a reminder to everyone to put the Gingerbread House Extravaganza setup on their calendars. Our setup date and time is November 16th from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. Mike, are you in here? Yeah. Anything you want to say about that now that you have a mouthful of food? It's my specialty.
Well done.
Great.
The more people we have, the faster we can get it done. We normally get it done in 2 hours. Yes, sir, Barry.
Will there be donuts?
There will be donuts, and there will be coffee. So it is your annual donut fee.
There you
Yeah,
go.
it's
And there
pretty,
will be a few Springfield ones for those that show through.
it's pretty streamlined now. I mean, you know, it's a, I think it's a, they've done a really good job making it happen very quickly and efficiently, I think. So, yeah.
The really cool thing is this is the event that takes the Jacksonville Historical Society into the black each year. So they do a great job, but they, when it comes down to plugging electrical cords in and finding a way to down, make tables the same height, not their strength. So, or at least they make it feel really good about it.
Yeah. I know. I think we need to, you know, retrain them, or maybe perhaps. So, all right, great. And, yeah, so Ed Vaughn.
All right.
Got a raffle?
We have a raffle.
All right, come on.
Sure, if I could get you, take the winning ticket out of there. Thank you. It's 3884100. He's got it. All right.
There you go.
All right. There you go.
Thank you. We'll take it.
Thanks, Ed.
Good job.
Jay, are you there?
I am here.
Jay, would you like to introduce our speaker for us, please?
Yes, I very much. First of all, it's me, your friendly neighborhood Zoom member. I hope to be back soon. My daughter gets married this weekend and I'll be out of quarantine. But having said that, I'm especially disappointed that I can't be there in person today because of today's speaker. If I could say, if 9-year-old me knew who I was introducing today, 9-year-old me would be pretty speechless and starstruck. With all due respect to Tony Baselli, Mark Brunell, Fred Taylor, Bob Hayes, and others, for those of us who grew up in Jacksonville in the 1970s, there's no sports figure who reigns taller, both literally and figuratively, than Artis Gilmore. For me personally, my greatest memories as a child was watching the JU Dolphins. Artis's bio is in the gear, but just to reiterate a few of the facts from sort of his amazing career. We know that he was born in Chipley, Florida. We know that in 1970, Artis led tiny Jacksonville University to the NCAA basketball championship game where they were ahead for a while. They lost 80-69 to legendary coach John Wooden and the UCLA Bruins. At Jacksonville University, Artis became one of 5 college basketball players ever to average at least 20 points and 20 rebounds over the course of his career. And his 22 rebounds per game is still an NCAA record. The gear tells you about his professional career. I think one of the more fascinating things is that He was elected the ABA Rookie of the Year and the ABA Most Valuable Player of the Year in 1971-72 after being drafted by the Kentucky Colonels. And the person he beat out is someone that many people may be familiar with, a man by the name of Dr. J, Julius Erving. Artis, of course, was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in August of 2011. One of the more interesting facts I ever remember knowing about Artis is when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said that there were two players that were the strongest people he ever knew in his life. One was Wilt Chamberlain, the other was Artis Gilmore. There's a documentary out there that I highly recommend to those who have not seen it. It's called Jacksonville Who? And hopefully Artis will get a chance to talk about this. But, you know, when I remember seeing Artis in the 1970s, when I was 9, 10 years old, I didn't know at the time and didn't relate the fact that when JU went on their run, it was only a decade after one of the worst events in Jacksonville history, Axe Handle Saturday, where African Americans were beat up for peacefully protesting. And many people credit that JU team that Artis served on, that Artis led, to helping to get us beyond what we saw on that horrible day. So without saying anything more, 9-year-old me appreciates Artis being here, and all of South Jacksonville Rotary, please welcome Artis Gilmore.
Good afternoon. Jay, I really appreciate that introduction. So, of course, Halloween yesterday, and I was thinking in terms of everybody spoke about their costume, and I couldn't figure out one to wear except that my own. I said, this basketball player, Artis Gilmore, and that was my costume for my grandkids yesterday. But anyways, to the president, past President Tom, and the president, and all your Rotary members and family, I have this, I think it's kind of extraordinary success story that I like to share and part with you today. Started, as Jay mentioned, in Chipley, Florida. And for those of you who don't have no idea what Chipley, Florida is located, it's northwest. When people used to ask me, where are you from? I would say most likely a Tallahassee, Dothan, Alabama, some of those places, in order to identify that location, Chipley, Florida. But anyway, starting in the beginning for me, a most likely extraordinary story. I was born to my mother, who was during that time was a single parent, and I was born at home with midwife, breech birth. You imagine kerosene lamp, and my mother was an exceptionally large lady, big, tall, strong lady. But she was carrying this, everybody said, well, the people that was around said that this baby was like a 1-year-old when he was born. So, and my mother shared that story over and over. Of course, we didn't have, ways of weighing a baby and, all the documents, Terry, that was necessary, like they would always write the name in the Bible or something, so of that sort. And they recorded, I guess, later on. Like right now, I'm trying to figure out how did the government find out my data and the birth date and actually have it on record. But as a kid growing up in Chipley with 2 other brothers that during that time, and later on we moved in with my father, and I was about 5. I was close to 5 years old, and of course these, they were not married, but they would continue to produce brothers and sisters for me. But that time, during this time, was tremendously racially charged, and and all the challenges that, you know, my parents, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have, most of the time did not have food in the house. And so because of that, the schools and everything was separate, and there was no way of being able to excel or develop in education. Little quick story. My father, I said, listen to most of you guys, said, man, I remember you when I was a kid watching you play basketball at JU. And now you're old men, so that makes me about 100. But anyways, those days when I was just a young kid at Chipley, Florida, I remember one bus trip that we taken, my mother and my two other brothers. We ended up going to Beckley, West Virginia, and having to stay in the back of the bus. And I don't remember, I know if my mother would have gotten off the bus, that she wouldn't have been allowed to get back on. And she had these three little kids in a little huddle, a little small location. And I remember this lady that was sitting right next to her. And guess she recognized these little hungry kids. And she actually took out a bag of chocolate peanuts and she put them in this little kid's hand, and, you know, just leaning to the side. And I remember my mother had tears in her eyes, not being able to provide during that time, that trip up to Beckley, West Virginia, where her sister lived. And so after we arrived in Beckley, you know, we spent some time there, we come back and then back to Chipley. And because of, again, that very intense race time, that my schools, the school segregated, and of course, then I was at which was the black school, Rolak High School. So as I'm continuing to grow, that when I reached 12 years old, I wore a size 12 shoe. Imagine that. And so when I turned 13, and you can imagine the next year, and Chipley, Florida, can you imagine someplace going to try and purchase a size 13 shoe? Well, that was not going to happen. Even if there was a 13 shoe, my parents did not have the funds to be able to go and purchase it. So next 3 or 4 years, actually, I went without shoes. I had, and when we starting to play basketball just a little bit there. The kids from different schools, we would go to different little small schools in the country, and this was outdoors and it was sandlocked, so it wasn't necessary to have shoes during that time. So, but as I continued to turn 14 and 15, you know, I think that was about the first time one of these salesmen came through the city, well, it was my side of the town, and this gentleman says, you know, lady, I got a pair of shoes in my car, fit that boy, and she said, you know, I don't have any money, I don't have any way of paying you, sir. She said, well, I'm through here all the time. She gave him 50 cents or something like that. But the most important part of that story was that there was a little booklet, the King Size Ink, you know, out of Brockton, Massachusetts. and I was able to take that book and use it to purchase, you know, shoes and clothes from that time, from moving forward. But anyways, I graduated from Carver High School after leaving Rolak. I graduated from Carver High School in Dothan, Alabama. And then from there, I went to Gardner Well, and I spent 2 years at Gardner Well. And then I came to Jacksonville, and under the directions of Joe Williams and Tom Wasden, we were just able to just excel and just have a tremendous, tremendous season and brought about, you speak about that racial tension. It had, I had just departed from Gardner Webb in 1968, 69, and that was the year that Martin Luther King was assassinated. So there was just tremendous amount of tension in the air. So after arriving in Jacksonville, we were able to excel when we excel and just created just some incredible magic in the entire community. And it just galvanized the people, and things changed from that point to this day. I've never seen so much of a change in a community, and that's what happened. So after having tremendous amount of success at Jacksonville, in Jacksonville, then I was drafted by the Kentucky Colonels, and I was drafted first round, and of course there was two leagues during that time, the ABA and the NBA. And the ABA was considered kind of the minor leagues in the NBA, but I was drafted by both leagues. And I was drafted by the Chicago Bulls in the NBA, and I was drafted by the Kentucky Colonels in the ABA. And so everybody was asking me, why would you decide to go to a minor league over the NBA? And my reason that I did not share with the nation or all the fans across the country at that time, I said, I like the color of basketball, And that was a remark that was not really pronounced to the point that I should have shared it in a different manner, which was the reason I signed with the ABA was because of my parents and that struggle that I experienced as a kid growing up. I wanted to be able to provide for my parents and my younger brothers and sisters. And the one remark that really sold me to the point that that I signed with the ABA is because they said, listen, if you sign this contract, we'll guarantee it for a large number of years. And just think, in the event, if you go out and turn your foot or break your ankle or, just destroy your body to the point you are unable to play any more basketball, you will continue to receive these funds. And that was a guarantee, to be able to provide for the family during at this particular time. So, and that's the reason I signed with the ABA. And then 5 years afterwards, the leagues merged. And we, again, the Chicago Bulls actually had the rights in the initial first draft. And so I went to in the first round draft, selected draft to the Chicago Bulls. And I spent 6.5 years there, and I had a one little stint that I played at the end of my career. I played with Michael Jordan, and then the other half of the year with Larry Bird. That was the end. Wow. But I played for 17 years in NBA, ABA, and then I played 1 year in Italy. And that was a sort of an opportunity to experience a different culture with my family. And my wife and I celebrated in July 50 years of marriage. And with that, I just went kind of an overlap of my story, but from the bottom to the top, as a Hall of Famer here at Whitish Jacket. And thank you guys, thank you Rotary for allowing me to come and share the story with you. So now I guess if you have any questions, I'd like to try to answer for you. Yes.
I have one. Well, I have two actually, Artis. One, who do you think the GOAT is? Michael Jordan or LeBron James? And number two, can you talk to us about Larry Bird's trash talking on the court?
Okay, you know, everybody started comparing different athletes from the different time zone. And they mentioned, you know, Michael Jordan and LeBron James. LeBron James, I mean, he was just an incredible athlete. Yeah. And you look at LeBron, he could play the guard, he could play the two guard, defend as a two guard, and he can defend as a forward, small forward, and power forward, and then he could contend as a center. But you know, I don't think Michael Jordan was that diverse to be able to do that. But I wanted to point out different eras of time and different players. If you think about Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis from that time, you know, everybody said, well, who would win between those two? And my answer is, I have no idea. They would have to be in that particular time fighting each other. So even Rocky Marciano, you know, they talked about him and his successes, that he wasn't fighting anybody of competitive of nature. So, but it was just those times, and you speak in terms of my time. If I were playing in the NBA today, well, of course, some young legs and a younger body. Anyways, you spoke about Larry Bird's trash talking, and yes, sir. I mean, he really poured it on. And I remember right now I call him 30,000. I said 30,000 feet. He was enjoying a card game. I think he fell and banged his head. But you know, I think about my relationship with Larry Bird even before that we met. And in fact, when he was in college at French Lick, no, that's where he's from, but Indiana State, where he played ball, that he came down to Port St. Joe. How many of you know about the northwest of Florida? Spent any time, okay, so Port St. Joe, you would know that location. Sure. Well, yeah. That was one of the first times I was able to spend some time with Larry in one of the basketball camps over there. But he just was an incredible individual, and that was a tremendous relationship that I have with Larry. Still does. Yes, sir.
I don't know a lot about the NBA. Do guys like you came along and kind of set the foundation for the modern NBA we enjoy today? Is the NBA, the players make so much money nowadays by comparison. Do they take care of the foundational players? And I think some other leagues do.
Yes, retired players. Yeah. I mean, like I would say, hey man, I love to send a Brinks bank truck to, you know, so you can back it up and send me enough to pay my bills. You know? But I think they have responded well on a number of issues. For one, they make sure that we are covered on the insurance. Now, so we have my insurance. It doesn't cost me anything. So I mean, that was one of the things I was working for really late. You know, and in fact, I didn't share anything about my wife and Nola Gay, which somebody asked me a question. I can talk about my wife. But anyways, that was one of the things that we was able to share. Yes, sir.
About your wife.
Okay, my wife, I met her and at Gardner Webb. But something for you experience, I won't say older gentlemen, but you experienced individual here. Of course, like myself, experience and age. But Enola Gay is a really famous name. How many in here knows about Enola Gay? Oh, that's great. But one of the most extraordinary things about it is that she and I have traveled mostly all over the world. And we had an opportunity to travel to Japan. And can you imagine, she was very uncomfortable. You know, what's your name now, man? It's Miss Gilmore, you know. So she was really uncomfortable. Finally, somebody said, oh, Enola Gay. Oh, yes, Enola Gay, very famous name in Japan. But we have known each other for over 50 years. And of course, we've been married for 50 years. And we have 5, we had 5. I lost one of my daughters a little over a year ago in June. And then we have 2 boys, 2 girls, and we have 3 grandkids, a set of twins, boy and girl, 12 years old, and an 8-year-old extra one. And when I speak, I'm laughing because we have an extra. My youngest son was surprised. Everybody says a surprise package. He's 25 years old, you know. And so he's just an odd, really different. It's like one of my daughters had said to us earlier, said, Mom, if we would have known that you wanted to have grandkids, we would have had the grandkids for you and then give them to you. But my son, Artis, and we named him Artis II. So, but that's my family, Enola Gay, and yes, sir.
I'm interested, I mean, I can imagine when you were growing up that people in the community might have looked at you and said, let me find a basketball to put in your hands. But I'm curious how you got started in basketball, at what age, and is it something that you loved from the start, or maybe you didn't love it from the start, but you grew to like it because you were pretty good, obviously. But can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, I was speaking with somebody here a moment ago about Florida. Was it Florida? Yes. That just the entire state of Florida, it's like secondary basketball wise. This is football country. Always be from here all the way back to Texas. But in those earlier days, as I said, as I continue to grow at different ages, but we played because we would be able to travel to another school. We could play basketball. That was like intramural, and we would and we would play outdoors. In fact, the court was all just straight sand, and they had little small wooden backboards up, but we played, and my interest sort of grew just a little bit, but there were so many parts of that story that my early years that I'd like to share with you, but it would take it's going to take another book to share that part of the story. But my interest continued to grow in basketball, just a little at a time, and then the other one, the coach said, because I was so tall, he just brought me up to the varsity team, and I remember when we traveled, we go to a place and I duck and go through the door, and the fans start shouting, "Oh wow!" And I know it. I had so much fear, and my shoes, they were like, I don't know. Remember, if you once again the experienced individuals here remember the old years, the tennis shoes you just slide your foot in and it has a little rubber band, and they would rip on the side. And mine was wrapped. You put some cardboard in there, to try to prevent it from continuing and destruct. So those little things were allowing me to sort of gather interest, but later on, because of the large family, no food, it allowed me to get involved in activities and travel with the team. I didn't have a chance to play, but I continued, and that allowed me to get away from home. But as I continue to grow, you're right, they start pushing a basketball in my hand a little later on. And so I've been really late to the table as far as training, like many of the kids who develop quickly and be able to mature. And that's, I think, because I didn't have an interest early and didn't have the tools to, like shoes and access to good coaching, that allowed me to be a little bit behind what is taking place. And I have achieved to the ultimate top by being a Hall of Famer. There's so many great players who have not had an opportunity to reach this pinnacle in the game. Yes, sir.
How did you end up at Jacksonville University?
Really funny story. There was a colleague, and nobody remember the name. His name was Ernie Fleming. He was my teammate. We traveled down to Gardner Well. We both merged there for a visit. When we both agreed, said, hey, listen, he came in from Fall River, Massachusetts, and I drove up from Dothan, Alabama. And we started at Gardner Well. We spent 2 years there. And Gardner Well was on the verge of adding a third year and a fourth year. And we would have been originally in that class. So Ernie says, hey, and I have no desire to continue to stay here. So he went to, he was recruited by Joe Williams and Tom Wasden at Jacksonville University before he went off to really came down to Gardner Well. So when he got to Gardner Well and he was ready to go, he said, Artis, I don't know if you stay or not, but if you want to go with me, I know Joe Williams, I'm going to call him up and see if I'm ready to come. I'm ready to come to Jacksonville now. So anyway, Ernie wrote Joe Williams and Tom Wasden a letter and asked him, says, listen, I'm ready to come to Jacksonville University now. But by the way, I have a friend of mine, and his name is Artis Gilmore, and I'd like to bring him along with me. And, and really a true story. And so, but, back in those days, information was like the Pony Express. You think about new technology and how quickly things happen in a millisecond. But I remember when you flew into Atlanta and you had a line of people prepared with pocket full of change, trying to make a phone call between flights. And you look at the technology today and how things have developed and moved so quickly and so fast and so available and such incredible access. Yes, sir.
You talked about your 17 years playing basketball. What did you do after you retired from the NBA? Did you coach anywhere?
No. After retiring from my last year, even though I was in Europe, we maintained our residence in San Antonio, Texas. So afterwards, I came back. I was thinking that when I departed from Jacksonville, they presented me the key to the city. And, you know, I enjoyed this city and my experience of growth during that time. I decided I wanted to come back here and be a part of the community and raise my family. And that's what I was able to do. Yes, sir.
I was curious to get your thoughts on how you feel the game has evolved since you've played, and if you think they should move the 3-point line back.
It's incredible what has happened over the years. These athletes have developed and advanced so much. In fact, to give you an example, you know, Nike is one of the huge names in all the sports. And you see that logo, that swoosh logo all over the place. But I remember in the early years that I was with Nike, myself and Michael Jordan just came in later on. But the company was growing, and the shoes it played in, you could only play about 2 or 3 games and you had to toss it. And that's how bad it was. But we talk about how Nike was able to invest in that and develop into just an incredible shoe. And now, you know, the kids, we played on hard concrete now. Now the floors absorb the impact, you know. So many players that I competed and played with, they actually have had hip replacement, knee replacement, you know, double knee replacement. And it just continued on because all of those early years and just medicine itself has really just moved into just an incredible category. You just think about some of the players before, when a doctor had to make a decision about surgery, it was a big cut, you know, they just into the tissue. You know, one of the things about muscular tissue, it just collapsed after any kind of a incision is made into it, just atrophy, just develop. So over the years, in those early years, the athletes had to rehab, and they were not able to have, the kind of a medical training. Like I was thinking about Dick Buckets. He was one of the first players to successfully sue franchise the Bears and win the litigation because it just brought us not top of the line surgeon in to do surgery on his knee, and they just messed it up so badly, and so it just ended his career. Medicine has changed, and the evolution of the game has just been moved to just an incredible level. Yes, sir.
You played for Jacksonville University, and I went to a school about that size. That just seems incredible that they were able to compete on the national level. Would a school today of that size have any chance of competing? And what was the difference back then?
Well, it all happened to be just an incredible surprise and just a tribute to a handful of people that really supported Joe Williams in his recruiting efforts in those early years. Joe Williams was lent a credit card by one of the businessmen in this community, and somebody else gave a loan, Bill Nimnick, they loaned him a vehicle, and that was his recruiting tool. And that's one of the, he were lucky, he and Tom, they coached against each other in high school here in Jacksonville. And later, they become a team together, and that's where they end up at Jacksonville University. But that combination, the two of them, and was able to get out into the community and do some incredible recruiting. And most of the southern schools like I said, the racially tense, they were not taking black athletes. So a program like JU, it was really extraordinary for them to have, in this part of the country, 3 black athletes. And in fact, Ernie Fleming was supposed to be the guy transferred down with me. He was supposed to be my teammate as well. But that part of the time, it just accelerated and just moved on. And that was part of the programs. Now you talk about schools, there's so much money out there now. And it would be just incredibly difficult for a school the size of JU to compete unless somebody has some tremendous amount of funds they're going to insert into the institution. Yes, sir.
Artis, can I ask you a question?
Pardon me?
Did your kids end up being athletes also, or what's the story there?
Just incredible. My daughter I lost about a year ago. She was a true athlete out of all my boys and the other girls. I had do have my youngest daughter. She was really hard working and she loved it. She's smart and enjoyed the game, but she didn't have the talent to compete. But my daughter that I lost, she and I at one time was the only father-daughter that made it to the Final Four at one time together. And she did it with Louisiana Tech and of course I with Jacksonville University. All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Artis, I wanted to ask you about just one of my favorite fun stories from your day. You know, many people may not know that there was no shot clock when you played at JU, which was amazing because I know y'all averaged over 100 points a game, which I think maybe it's been done once since then. But I remember going to games and watching Joe Williams when the opposing team would play 4 corners because they wanted to try to get rid of Artis. And Joe would just leave you down by yourself and you play 1-on-5. And that would be the entire way that he tried it when they tried to play 4 corners. Do you remember those days? Could you talk about those stories?
Hey, Jay. Thank you. Reminiscing about that particular sequence, what Jay just mentioned, was pretty extraordinary. And you think back in those days, we average 100 points. You know, you look at teams today, they struggle to score, 40, 50 points and 60 points a game, and on the collegiate level now. I mean, of course, there's others that really accelerate the scoring. But what Jay was talking about was back then, there was no 30-second clock, a 35-second, maybe it is at collegiate level. But there was no shot clock. And teams, and in fact, Dean Smith was the first individual to kind of 4 corners. And so you remember that, speaking about basketball, and because of that technique, that Dean Smith, he ended up, he ran South Carolina out of the ACC conference because they said that they just not going to play with him holding the ball. They had so much talent at South Carolina, but he would beat them because I remember the final score in one of their games was 12-13. And you just think like just about when basketball was invented, that every time the guys would score, they would come back to center court and toss the ball up again, to restart the game. And back in those days, that's when the final score was 11-12. And this was probably back in the 20s, 20s. And so that's the reason, Jay, I think, you know, and this one particular, the one particular sequence that Jay mentioned is that because they were holding the ball against Jackson University, and we were playing this one particular team, I don't remember the name.
Loyola,
Look,
Loyola, New York, out of New York.
okay. Wow, okay. But anyways, yeah, they were holding the ball against JU, and so finally we got a little score. And so I came down and my teammates moved, they just stayed to remain at the other end of the court. And so I was playing defense against the entire team all along. So I blocked 2 or 3 shots and they were just really having fun. And I think they protested that game because they said that we overreacted or something, and nothing that ever happened of that. Well, gentlemen, ladies, I would like to say thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. I would have a speaker gift for you, but President Charlie has that, so I'm sure we'll be able to forward that to you.
Yes.
Whatever that may be. It's a mystery to us all. Thank you. Please join us next week when our speaker will be Brian Sexton of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And as we end our meeting, please stand and join me in the 4-way test. Number 1, is it the truth? Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. See you next week.